Well, it's
Will do.
time once again to see if Mike Kazarian's. There he is. Look at that man.
Good morning, Howard.
You know, Kazarian is Dan Duran handsome. I don't. Do you
Yeah.
see what I'm saying? Like he
Oh,
is.
striking. Yes, striking.
Like if we, I don't want to get Dan Duran on here just yet because Dan does some acting, Mike does some acting, but Kazarian's definitely got that look. You know.
Yes, he does.
I would like to be on your show every morning.
Well, I'm sure you would. Let me get your intro music here, my friend. I've got Mike Kazarian intro music. Here we go. You only get one opportunity, one shot to work with somebody like Kazarian at Lender's Choice Mortgages. I have to say this because it's part of the legal. Mike Kazarian is one of the broker owners of Lender's Choice Mortgages, an independently owned and operated member of Mortgage Alliance, license 13582. Hello, Michael.
Good morning, Howard. Good morning, Fred.
Good morning, Mike. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
You know, last time we talked a lot about people's mortgages coming due this year. Just remind everybody what the significance of this year is in terms of Canadian mortgages.
Yeah. First of all, great to be back. But yeah, last time I was on, we talked about 1 million mortgages that were maturing in 2024 and another million mortgages that are going to be maturing in 2025 in Canada. So these mortgages are at much lower rates than they are today. So it's going to be a significant impact to people's cash flow because their payments are going to be a lot higher.
Do you have any sense for, because Mike's been in the business, both in the the banking world and as an independent broker now for some time, but based on your experience, and I know you get asked this all the time, so I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm sure people are always saying, Mike, what do you think is going to happen, and where? Give me two answers. Where are mortgage rates now generally, and where do you think they might go?
Where they are right now, well, it all depends on the fixed rate terms that you're looking at or variable rate terms that you're looking at. So that's a pretty loaded question, Howard. Not a simple question to answer, but obviously from the peak of February 2022, interest rates are, well, the Bank of Canada rate is 4.25% higher than it was back then. So yeah, we're paying much higher rates, particularly if you're in a variable rate mortgage. In 2022, we saw interest rates probably in the low 3% ranges on fixed rate mortgages. Some might even be under 2%. And now we're in the 5.5% range on. So it's a huge difference.
And that game, the Bank of Canada last week held the line on interest rates, but they always have that little attachment saying, yeah, they could go down or they could go up. So that whole mystery still surrounds mortgage rates going forward.
It's been a mystery since the start of the pandemic and when Bank of Canada started raising interest rates. So yeah, I agree with you, Fred. It is a mystery. Nobody has a crystal ball. I mean, inflation is coming down and it's where the Bank of Canada, it's close to where the Bank of Canada wants it to be at. So we are going to see interest rates start to come down in 2024. As to when that happens, nobody knows. But, it could be in the first quarter. It could be, June, July. We'll see. But the six big banks are forecasting a 1% decrease in rates in 2024 and another 1% in 2025. So,
Well,
Yeah.
and you said something interesting there to me that, people who had, well, let's say a 3-year mortgage at 2 or 3%, they're going to be up for renegotiation. In the old model for most people, and including us, I've never used a mortgage broker because it seemed like, you just go to the bank and take whatever they give you. And because the rates were so low for so long, it really didn't matter. You're paying a couple points, whatever it was, money was cheap. But now's the time where people are going to need somebody like you because you're not just tied to one lender, one rate. And maybe talk a little bit about that, how much more important this next year is going to be if people's mortgages are coming up to use someone like Mike. Are you Mike Kazarian? Yes, you are. So talk about it.
that's me. Yeah, no, good point, Howard. Like for sure, when your mortgage comes out for renewal at your financial institution, they're gonna say, here's your rate, here's your options. and you're either going to take it or you're going to leave it, and you need to shop around. And I think most people are going to shop around more now than ever. So whether you go to every financial institution, knock on their door, have them do a credit check on you, do an application, or you're just going to ask about what the rates are. Coming to somebody like myself, like we do that shopping for you. So, um, and we have no preference to any one lender. We're going to go wherever makes sense for you. But it's about the rate, but it's also about the advice. Because I'm going to be here 5 years from now when your mortgage comes up for renewal. I'm going to be here through your whole mortgage process. So we're here to guide you. But one thing I want to talk about is fixed versus variable rates. We've kind of talked about, where interest rates are going. We know that there's a lot of mortgages maturing in Canada over the next 2 years. But I think what people want to hear is, what should I do?
So what should they do?
Well, look, not, no shoe fits every person the same way, right? So
No.
everybody's different. But let's just talk about variable rates for a second. A variable rate mortgage is one that's tied to the Bank of Canada rate, and that can fluctuate when the Bank of Canada rate goes up or down. So we saw at the beginning of the pandemic, the interest rates were low. People were getting low rates on their variable. And then as interest rates rose, people's interest rates went up and eventually cost them more money. So there are some pros to a variable rate mortgage. One, you can lock it into a fixed rate term equal to or longer than your remaining term anytime. So that's important. And a lot of people don't know that. They don't know that a variable rate, you can lock it in. So 2 years from now, if rates are low, you can lock it into a 3, 4, or 5 year fixed rate. There's a huge advantage.
And it
And
gets
the
back to,
second,
I'm sorry, and people's appetite for, if you want to call it risk. Some people just go, oh, I just want to not have to worry about this for 5 years, when it's probably not the right financial decision.
yeah, but Fred, when people say that to me, it's a clear red flag that they are adverse to risk.
Yeah, right.
And so when they say, I just want to forget about it, then, maybe a fixed rate is better for you. So then we have to look at, okay, well, where do we think interest rates are going to go over the next 5 years? And does it make sense to lock into a 4 or 5 year fixed rate when we're, a little bit off the peak? So maybe a 1 or 2 or 3 year fixed rate might be better for you.
Right.
Uh, so yeah, one other thing about the variable rate, because you can lock it in at any point in time, that's advantageous. But another advantage is that if you do want to break a variable rate mortgage, the penalty is only typically 3 months interest penalty. So your penalty to break a variable rate mortgage is much lower than it would be on a fixed rate mortgage.
Here's the thing. I've had mortgages for a long time, and I've always been a bit nervous to tie it as a variable because of what you just described. But I think that's great information. I didn't know that, because you think about a variable rate that you could lock it in if it's a good rate, but you could also lock it in if things are starting to look a little nervy. Like if you had a variable rate in 2022, as things started to rise, I'm sure a lot of people said, okay, screw it. Let's lock it in now before it gets any worse.
Yeah, and a lot of people did, for sure. And that's a huge advantage to having that variable rate mortgage. And a lot of people didn't, because nobody forecasted 10 rate increases. But yeah, so that's a huge advantage to that variable rate mortgage. Now, when we look at a fixed rate mortgage, a fixed rate is locked in for the entire term. So whether it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, or 10 year term, it's locked in. So it gives you that peace of mind. You can sleep at night. This is your payment for the next 3 years, 5 years, whatever it is.
But the problem with a fixed rate might be if you lock it in for too long and your financial situation changes, you may not be able to support those payments the way you did in year 2 and year 5.
Well, that can happen if you had a variable rate mortgage too, right? If your financial situation changes, you lose your job, you get a divorce, whatever happens, that
Wait,
can
I've done all
impact you
those
for
things.
sure.
I've got all those things on my bingo card. That's me. That's like 10 years ago. I did all that. Job, divorce, death, did it all, baby.
And were you in a fixed or a variable rate at that time?
You know what, Mike? There was so much, Mike, you knew me at that time. There was so much chaos that who knew? I don't know. Did I have a mortgage? Maybe. Who knows?
Well, all that said, who cares? What was your handicap at that time? How was your
Here's what
golf
I
game?
know. Here's what I know. During that time, that was when I was on Tinder. I was going Tinder crazy, and Mike and I played golf one Saturday morning. It was the morning after this date that went completely sideways, and Mike was the first person I ever told that story to, and it was to this very day. All I have to say to Mike is meow meow, and he gets a little smile on his face.
Yeah, I was just, you know, I wasn't going to go there. What I was going to say is, you know, we have two cats,
Yeah.
so
Whatever.
I remember that story. That's a great one.
Anyways, Kazarian, I got to tell you, we're very impressed by someone. First of all, today the feed, the Zoom feed, absolutely perfect. So we've nailed that.
fantastic. I'm on my iPad now. I switched to, you know, a newer technology.
Well, I can also tell you that we updated our Zoom server, and it seems to have solved this problem. Mike Kazarian, the whole point about this conversation is Mike's an expert. You probably are going to have a mortgage conversation with somebody this year. We'd like you to support us by supporting Mike Kazarian at Lenders Choice Mortgages. It's lenderschoice.ca. There's a phone contact at that website. Get Mike a call. And as I said the other day about you, Mike, you know, you may not have that mortgage due this month, but you might want to start having that conversation. And you'll look at them just as a second opinion, like the Sherpa does. Have a conversation with Mike and just have a look at what somebody's situation is.
Yeah, absolutely. If your mortgage is maturing even next year, like now is the time to start planning ahead. You're going to get a renewal notice 120 days prior to your mortgage maturing, but you need to know what to expect. And maybe there's options for you now that might make more sense for you to break your mortgage early.
All right, my friend. I love the fact that mortgages mature, but Fred and I don't.
That's true.
Hey, Kazarian, lenderschoice.ca. Great job, my friend. I'll reach out later and get you a copy of this.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Appreciate
All right,
you.
Mike, take it easy.
Appreciate
Yeah,
you,
you too,
sir.
Fred.
Yeah, man. I've had some big laughs with my friend Mike Kazarian, and I'll tell you what, he knows what he's doing. You know, I'm sure you knew this, but I didn't realize that with a variable, or maybe I knew this at one time, that you can actually lock it in if you feel like you're starting to get nervous about the rate.
Well, but the rate will change. Say your variable is 3% and you want to lock in, they will
Right.
give you a lock in price. It will be
Right.
more because you're
So-
locking in for a term. So
Right.
it might be, at the time it may have been, lock in at 3.5, 3.75. But my mother-in-law has never had anything but a variable rate mortgage. And a few years ago, I remember she told me her financial person did crunch the numbers, and over the past 25 years, you're farther ahead with a variable than you are with one locked in. Now that may have changed recently, but traditionally that would have been the way to go. But you have to have a stomach for it. I never did. I always locked in. I was
Yeah,
one of
me
those
too.
guys, I just want to forget about it.
Same with me. One thing I did, and we should talk about this with Mike as well, because there's a lot of conversations around money and mortgages. I was sort of later. I got my first mortgage. I was 32 years old. You had already had a house for 5 or 6 years at that point in your life, did you not?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So I was a little late there, and what I did though is the idea of paying off a mortgage over 25 years, I just wanted to pay it down as fast as I could. So I made extra payments. I did it biweekly, and all those things that you can do in a mortgage that will help take down your interest rates, or not take them down, but pay less interest because you're paying it